This is Rattle and Hum Sports Podcast for Saturday evening, August the 24th, the year 2013. I'm Bryan Houston. The Cowboys win in their AT&T home opener in fake football season against the Cincinnati Bengals by a score of 24-18. With us now to break down the ball game, Matthew Postins from Rattle and Hum Sports. How you doing, Matthew?
Fine, Brian, and you gave him a sponsor right off the bat. I mean, it's AT&T Stadium, but you gave him a game sponsor.
Hey, well, you know, I do my best. I try to give them added value every chance I get.
Added value. That's Jerry Jones's middle name. Added value.
Yes, except when it comes to putting a football team together. Although, to be fair, Cowboys looked pretty good tonight.
They did. Overall, they looked pretty sharp. I mean, we're going to quibble about special teams, I think, here in a little bit.
Yes.
But offensively and defensively, if you're calling this the dress rehearsal game, you've got to feel pretty good about the way the Cowboys played overall in this contest. They put some points up with the first-team offense. Defense played very, very well against a very good football team in Cincinnati. It's hard to find fault when you look at this game all the way across. Played pretty well.
Okay, a couple of things. First of all, the good, Tony Romo and the chemistry he has developed with Des Bryant looks like it could be a game changer this year.
It really does, and I was thinking during the game that, you know, Des Bryant has really kind of grown into the indispensable one in this offense. I mean, every time he touched the football tonight, you kind of had the feeling he was going to take it for a 20 or a 30-yard gain or even all the way down the field for a touchdown. I mean, you kind of have this feeling now that he is just almost going to be impossible to stop for just about any defense this year, as long as he's healthy and as long as his head stays screwed on straight. And you know, I'll be honest with you, I'm not even really worried about his head at this point. I mean, when you consider his off-season, stayed out of trouble, kept his nose clean, no drama. It's been all about being on the field and practicing and getting better, and it has certainly translated this preseason. Romo's looked very sharp pretty much the whole preseason. I don't see any residual back issues. He seems to be handling the offense very well. He's ready to go. I mean, I don't see him playing in the final preseason game. At this point, he is ready to go for the season.
I was really glad to see the fact that they got into the end zone, though. That, you know, I mean, he's looked sharp all year long in the preseason, but they haven't scored any touchdowns tonight. That was the big difference in this game.
Absolutely, that first-team offense has got to start scoring points, and you know, it was nice to see them come off the turnover and basically drive the length of the field and get that touchdown to Bryant. And again, that was a situation where basically Romo just threw the ball up to Bryant, and Bryant went up and got it. The Austin touchdown pass was nice. How about Miles had a nice game tonight? You know, the running game finally kind of gathered some steam in the second half. It's nice to see that first team playing well, scoring points. That has to continue. One
of the things I was very encouraged by concerning Des Bryant was the interview during the telecast tonight, where he talked about the fact that he really understands. He's starting to be able to read defenses now and not only know the play but also know how to read things. It seems like, again, he's just taken this major step that I didn't know if he was capable of making that kind of step, but it seems like it's happening.
Yeah, you know, you kind of felt like for the first 2.5 years of his career he was getting by on pure skill. And then toward the end of last year, you kind of got the feeling that, you know, the light was starting to come on. If it wasn't, you know, coming on full blast, it was coming on, you know, kind of on a dim, so to speak. The dimmer of the light was coming up. And you're seeing it, I think, in full this year. I mean, you know, if you get a guy with his kind of ability who was putting up pretty good numbers to begin with on just his pure ability, and now he can read defenses, and now he really understands how he integrates into the offense, that's kind of scary.
No question about that. I'm very curious as to your take on the fact that DeMarco Murray was benched after his fumble and didn't play until he got in with the second-teamers there in the second half. First of all, just the decision by Jason Garrett to sit him after he fumbled early in the first quarter.
Well, I think this might have been Jason Garrett, you know, coming down on DeMarco Murray a little bit and saying, hey, you know, we cannot have that kind of stuff happen early in football games, because we saw how the Cowboys got behind the eight ball so much last year, and it was partly because of turnovers. Jason Garrett made a point during minicamp and training camp that when his offensive line made a false start, the entire offensive line came out, not just the one guy who committed the penalty. So this could have been Jason Garrett sending a message to DeMarco Murray, who has admittedly fumbled a few times in the past, a message of, hey, you must hang on to the football, you must protect the football, you cannot make those kinds of mistakes and be our number one running back.
Well, he sat there for a long time, had plenty of time in the first half to think about it. The only problem I had with it is that I think it's a great move by Garrett. It's a strong move. It shows that he's not going to tolerate this stuff. I like that a lot. But at the same time, Murray has not gotten much action at all in this preseason, and I don't know what you learned tonight by seeing him run strong against a second-team defense. He needs some work against ones, and he didn't get that tonight.
No, he did not get a whole lot of it, but I think in Jason Garrett's mind, I think the message is more important right now than the playing time. Murray's been healthy pretty much the whole off season. He did get some time against the second teamers, albeit not a first team defense. But I think Garrett really wanted to send a message tonight after that fumble, and it's kind of cumulative too when you consider Dunbar fumbled last week. They had another fumble in the Oakland game from the backfield. I think this was his way of sending a message, not just to Murray, but to the entire backfield that says, you will protect the football. You will not make those kinds of mistakes this season.
Well, and then I go back to something I've been saying all preseason. I really like Philip Tanner, and I really like Lance Dunbar, realizing, of course, Dunbar was not available tonight because of a foot injury. But I thought Tanner played really well tonight as the lead running back for most of the first half with the ones.
He did, and I think the offensive line played pretty well in front of him too. You look at the numbers. Randall had 66 yards, Murray had 51 yards, Tanner had 39 yards, and they all basically had the same amount of carries. Randall had 16, Tanner had 14, Murray had 12. The offensive line did a very good job against a very good Bengals front seven of opening up holes and giving these running backs opportunities to gain yardage. Tanner took full advantage of that in the first half. I think we're really beginning to see this zone blocking scheme that the Cowboys are implementing this season really pay dividends because it's much simpler for running backs than other systems. Basically, in the zone blocking scheme, every offensive lineman has sort of an area, sort of an assignment. It's not so much about center blocking defensive tackle or tackle blocking defensive end. It's more about blocking an area, and the running back just picks the hole. It's a much simpler blocking scheme, and I think we're beginning to see the dividends of that because you're seeing so many different guys in this offense, 4 different guys basically putting up good numbers over the past 2 weeks.
At the same time, I'm not ready to put Doug Free in the Hall of Fame at right guard, I can tell you.
Well, I think the good news is we probably won't see him at right guard when the regular season starts. I think Free playing at guard tonight served a couple of purposes. Number one, I think the Cowboys just wanted to see him there in game action, just in case Ronald Leary doesn't come back and they don't feel comfortable moving Travis Frederick to one of the guard positions. Maybe they move Free to guard for a game, just as a way of filling out the offensive line and quote-unquote putting your 5 best guys out there. The other reason was they needed to get Jeremy Parnell some playing time. He missed part of camp with an injury. He needed to play with the ones. He needed to get some playing time out there. And I thought Parnell, performed nicely given the fact that he hasn't really been able to play a whole lot this preseason.
Yeah, the thing about Free that bugs me, he had a false start. He had 2 sacks he allowed. We definitely do not want to see him at guard. Yes, we want to see Parnell play a little bit, but we know now that that is not an option for the Cowboys, I would think.
Yeah, and we kind of talked about, or the Cowboys kind of talked about this in the offseason. It was speculated they might move Free to guard in the offseason. I don't think that's really an option now. Jerry Jones has made it very clear that he feels Ron Leary is the starting guard on that side of the football, and as long as Leary's healthy, he'll be the starter for the season opener. If it's not Leary, I don't think you'll see Doug Free inside. I think you'll see them slide Frederick over there, or even start David Arkin if it's just for a game.
As far as the defense is concerned, Brandon Carr with a fumble recovery, B.W. Webb with a great interception on a skinny post. I think that they continue to force turnovers. It was a real good sign tonight for the most part.
Yeah, we talked about it last week. I really wanted to see how the defense played against Cincinnati, because this was a team that was a playoff team last year. They have so many different weapons across the offense. They have so many different ways they can beat you. They do an extremely good job of running the football, and the defense played very, very well for the Cowboys tonight. That first drive where the Bengals were inside the 10-yard line and the Cowboys forced a turnover, that's exactly what you want out of the cover two. We had one guy hit the receiver, you had another guy come in and strip the receiver, and you had a third guy come in and recover the fumble. That's Monty Kiffin football right there. He wants guys to stand guys up, to get another guy near the football to try and strip the ball and create turnovers. I think they created, 3, maybe 4 turnovers. They had the one late, Xavier Brewer picking off the football. I mean, they've created at least 2 turnovers every preseason game. That's outstanding for a team that struggled to create 1 turnover at times last year.
Okay, now let's talk about the disastrous part of this thing. Their special teams right now are horrible.
Yeah, they're not playing very well. This is
that's the understatement of the century.
Having been around Richard Bisaccia for 4 years in Tampa Bay, I can tell you that this unit right now does not measure up to the best units that he had in Tampa Bay. Now, granted, Bisaccia does things a little bit differently than Richard D. Camillus did last year. Granted, he's working with a lot of new guys, special teams-wise, but this group is nowhere near where it needs to be. That punt return for a touchdown for the Bengals in the first quarter of this game, that's the kind of thing that just makes his skin crawl. I can tell you that right now.
It's the kind of thing that would get you fired if you don't get that corrected.
Yeah, well, the good thing about Richard Bisaccia is he does have a track record for crafting good coverage units in the regular season. So, he's not going to get fired anytime soon, obviously, but the Cowboys are relying on his track record of being able to turn guys into good coverage guys, but they're just obviously not there yet.
And we also learned tonight that not only do you not have a great special teams, but it doesn't help when your supposedly home field advantage turns against you when you kick the ball and it hits the scoreboard and you have to re-kick and you end up giving up a touchdown.
Yeah, that's very unfortunate. I have to imagine a couple of folks said, Jerry, do you really want the screen to be that low to the field? And I mean, if you've never been in this stadium, I can tell you that Jumbotron is very low to the field. Even though Chris Jones hitting the Jumbotron is probably the second or third time that's happened in the stadium's 5-year history, it's extremely low. And it's sort of like the catwalks at Tropicana Field in Tampa Bay. There are certain catwalks where if you hit it, it's a home run, and there are certain catwalks when if you hit it, it's a dead ball. It's sort of like that. And you never want a game turning on that sort of a possession.
I kept waiting for umpires to come out and explain ground rules for the field tonight before the game.
Well, they have to do that every night at Tropicana Field. They have to explain which catwalks are home runs and which catwalks are dead balls.
Wow. That was not a good time for Jerry Jones and for his stadium, I can tell you.
No.
All right. As far as the second offense is concerned, Kyle Orton, obviously looked much better than he did last week, which wouldn't have taken much because he was awful last week. So he showed something. The running game, again, with DeMarco Murray and with the twos showed something. Obviously some great improvement in that respect.
Yeah, I thought so. And you're not looking forward to light the world on fire. You just want him to be solid and serviceable, and he certainly was this week. Got the touchdown pass there in the third quarter, was much sharper. I'm sure that Jason Garrett had some words for him after last week's performance against Arizona. We'll see a lot more Kyle Orton next week when they play their final preseason game. As long as he's reasonably sharp, I don't think there'll be anything for the Cowboys to really be worried about in that regard. Tony Romo has a pretty good track record of being healthy overall. So, as long as that track record holds, you won't see much of Kyle Orton when September rolls around.
Okay. Anybody else that really, I know you love the fourth string running back, who you insist is going to be number 2 right now. And yes, he did look good in the fourth quarter, but he was running against the threes. I mean, what is the situation there with him at this point?
Well,
with Joseph Randle.
With Randle, I think that it's really going to depend a lot on Dunbar's health. And I don't see Dunbar being back for the season opener. And you have to wonder, with the way Tanner ran against the ones tonight, if Tanner made a case to be the temporary number 2 back. You
did it again. You said he's a temporary. You are giving this guy the number 2 position, and he has not earned it yet.
Well, I think the Cowboys drafted this guy to be the number 2 back.
But he's got to earn the position, though. He's not a number 2. Right now, he's the 4th best running back on this team.
Well, what I liked about Randle tonight was, what I liked about him in the Hall of Fame game. He ran strong to the outside, and that's something that DeMarco Murray has struggled a little bit with over the past couple of years. I still think that the Cowboys envision Murray and Randle as a 1-2 punch. That may not come to fruition at the beginning of the regular season, but at the same time, I don't think Joseph Randle is going to be a guy who's going to be sitting on the sideline the season opener not playing at all. I think he will get some reps. I think he will get some playing time. I think Tanner will too, but I think the Cowboys are... I personally think the Cowboys are going to roll the dice a little bit Sunday night against the Giants in that season opener and play and feed Murray quite a bit to see what he can handle.
We need to find that out because if he's a China doll, we need to know that so we can move on to, if we got another Felix Jones situation here, then it's good that they've got 3 running backs behind him this year who seem to be able to step up and play.
Yeah, absolutely, and I think it's going to be. I think it's going to be a situation where all 4 backs are going to get used in some way. I mean, Dunbar and Tanner obviously have value on special teams. Dunbar is a returner, Tanner is a cover guy. So, their value on the roster is that they can give you something on offense and give you something on special teams. I'm not sure how much Randle can give them on special teams yet, but, certainly he's not going anywhere given the fact that he was a 5th-round pick and the Cowboys are so high on him. So, I won't be surprised if most games this year you see all 4 running backs dress and all 4 running backs play at least a little bit.
And I'm not saying that the kid's not going to be really good, but I'm just not ready to coronate him yet. That's all I'm saying. I don't want to crown him the number 2 guy just yet because at this point it's clear to me that Tanner and Dunbar, when healthy, have both been really good backs. I'm not certain they haven't been better than Murray at this point.
Well, Dunbar certainly has grown probably the most of any of those 3 backs over the course of the training camp and preseason, so it's a bit of a shame that he's not able to play probably in the opener, given how much he's grown and how much he's gotten better over the offseason.
2 names that kind of impressed me tonight that we haven't talked about much. One, Micah Pellerin, who had an interception, and I thought played very well. I don't know how much time he's going to actually get in the secondary, or if he's even going to make the team, but he seemed to have a good ball game tonight. And the other guy was the rookie safety Jeff Heath, who forced a fumble there in the second half, as, again, we talked about forcing turnovers, which leads you to believe, what is the future for Matt Johnson on this football team?
Yeah, that's an interesting question because Johnson wasn't able to play tonight. Johnson hasn't been able to practice all week. The big problem with Johnson for the last few years has been his health. When he's been on the field, he's played well. The Cowboys have liked what they've seen. But in all honesty, Johnson has been on the field very little. Heath is a guy whose stock has risen the past couple of weeks because he's been making plays like the play he made tonight against the Bengals. Same way with Pellerin, although I think Heath's stock is probably a little higher than Pellerin's at this point. I'm of the belief that the Cowboys are probably going to keep either 9 or 10 defensive backs. Right now I have Johnson making the team. But the Cowboys, if they feel as if Johnson isn't able to come back from that injury within, say, a month or 2 of the start of the season, they may IR him and keep him there for another year. And if that's the case, that opens up a spot on the roster for a guy like Heath, who has played very well. Jakar Hamilton and other safeties played very well. You saw Xavier Brewer tonight get an interception. He's played well the past couple of weeks. The nice thing about that secondary position is they have so many guys that have played well and so many guys that could be useful to them that it's going to be one position group where depth is not going to be a huge issue.
Okay, any other thoughts about this? One other, I guess we can pretty much say that Nick Stevens is not going to be on this team. The question is Alex Tanney going to be on the 53-man roster?
Yeah, that's the question at this point. The fact that we didn't see Stevens tonight is a pretty clear indication that Stevens will probably be one of the players that's among the cuts that come up in the next couple of days for the Cowboys and have to pare their roster down to, I think, 75 to prepare for the final preseason game. Tanney's definitely won the number 3 job. Like you said, the real question is whether or not they'll keep him as a number 3 quarterback or, cut him and try and re-sign him to the practice squad. He's obviously shown them enough to have them interested. Stephen Jones said they're always looking for guys like that at this time of year. He's obviously piqued the Cowboys' interest. The only question is whether or not they keep him or not. I think this is one year where maybe they keep 3 just because I think they have enough flexibility at a couple of different positions where they could afford to keep a 3rd quarterback.
Well, let me throw this out to you because the Jets lost Sanchez tonight. Buffalo's lost their top 2 quarterbacks to injury tonight. Is Alex Tanney trade bait?
I don't think Alex Tanney's trade bait, but I think Kyle Orton could be trade bait.
Really? Ooh,
well, you got to think
gamble.
about it. Think about it. You're looking at the Jets. Geno Smith might be the number 1 guy there if Sanchez is out for a lengthy period of time. This is the time of year where starting quarterbacks start to get injured, and you've got to, if you're a GM for the Jets or some other team that just lost your number 1 quarterback for a measurable period of time, you've got to look at your options. Orton is a guy, I know you're not high on him, but he does have an overall winning record in the NFL. He can at least give you solid quarterback play for a short period of time. I don't know that he can do it over the whole season, but if you're talking about needing a backup for 3 weeks to a month, he might be able to give you that. And he's a smart enough quarterback who's played in enough different systems to where he can pick up whatever you have in your offense pretty quick. So, no, I don't think Alex Tanney's trade bait for anybody as far as a backup quarterback, but Kyle Orton could be if the price is right.
Would you make that move?
If I were in Jerry Jones's shoes, I don't think I would make that move because then you're left with a first-year guy behind Tony Romo, and that's just a recipe for disaster. I'd rather keep Orton, at least give myself a shot at being able to win a few football games if I lose Tony Romo for the season. Remember, John Kitna had a solid year after Romo left for the season. I don't think he had a winning record, but he was able to help the Cowboys win 3 or 4 games.
Yeah, John Kitna was not a bad backup quarterback. All right, Cowboys finish up then with their final preseason game, the final fake football game, and this one will be even faker, if there is such a word, than the others because we won't see one guy that's going to play in Game 1 against the Giants next weekend.
I think you might see a few.
Oh, well, it's only because they have to.
Yeah, I think you'll look at. I think you'll see some guys in the offensive line that'll start the opener. I think you'll see some guys in the defensive line that'll start the opener. I don't think things are that unsettled at either of those positions, but you have guys that are still, looking to show that they can handle, 30, 40 reps a game on the defensive side. You're looking at guys that are trying to show they can handle, 10, 15 reps on the offensive side and the offensive line if they need them. So you're not going to see Tony Romo or DeMarcus Ware or even DeMarco Murray or Des Bryant or anybody whose job is pretty much nailed down. But a guy like a Travis Frederick, you'll see him for a little while. A guy like Tyron Smith or a Doug Free, you'll see them for a little while because the Cowboys are just so, have so little depth at tackle, they'll probably have to play a little bit. So
yeah,
you'll see a few starters, but you will not see the guys that you would expect not to see at this point in the season.
Quick turnaround for the Cowboys in that preseason. They'll play on Thursday night against the Houston Texans at AT&T Stadium. So we can hardly wait.
Yeah, we can hardly wait to get rid of this preseason and move on to some real football.
Exactly. Matthew, thank you very much for coming on with us as always. We look forward to talking to you again. I know we've got a stock watch we've got to do here in the next day or two, so we'll touch base with you very shortly. What else is coming up?
We'll just be getting ready for that final preseason game. We'll keep up with the first series of cuts. I don't expect anybody really notable to be cut on the first wave of cuts. But it'll be interesting to see if the Cowboys see anybody cut by another team that they feel might be, worth their worth signing as a free agent at this point. I find that part to be intriguing. if there's an intriguing offensive guard or offensive tackle out there, they might pounce and sign him to the roster before they get to the final cut. So that way, if it's a young player and there's no place for him, they could put him on the practice squad.
Very good. Matthew, always a pleasure to talk to you, and especially after a win, regardless if it's fake or not.
Absolutely. Thanks, Brian.
Good to talk to you. Matthew Postins from Rattle and Hum Sports. This is a Rattle and Hum Sports podcast. Thanks very much for listening. I'm Bryan Houston. We'll talk to you next time.